Good morning. So today we're going to be talking about a fascinating subject, in my eyes at least. We're going to be talking about how to find and use books. Now, a couple of words before we dive into this topic. The first thing is that with an academic book, which is the subject of our conversation today, you absolutely do not read a book word for word, page by page, chapter by chapter. That's typically what you use for your recreational reading or your leisure time reading, whatever it may be. But when it comes to academic books, such as this lovely one right here, New History for the Humanities, they're structured a little bit differently. So within academic books, you're actually going to be reading them as though you were looking at a picture. Okay, you're going to be isolating out elements, you're going to study its frame and examine the details contained within it. So with academic books, you want to get the big picture in sight. So to start off with, take a look at the back cover. Okay, see how that's framed. What are the reviews? Is there a short excerpt within it? This is one of my personal books. So it looks a little different. It doesn't necessarily have the library backing or jacket on it, but definitely examine how the book is laid out. Something else that you want to look at right off the bat is look at the contents page. In an academic book, the contents page actually acts as an outline for how the book is going to be structured. Additionally, you're going to want to look at the introduction itself too, and then also look at the conclusion. Okay, and then once you've looked at these, skimmed them over, spend a little bit of time thinking about what you've just read about that. What did it tell you about who the author is, what the author's background was, what their schooling might have been, the highest level completed, what their current position is, or perhaps even what some bias might be revealed just by reading the table of contents, the introduction, and the conclusion. So already you can see that we're kind of breaking this out and looking at elements within the book, getting that big picture right off the bat. So the introduction basically sets the stage for the rest of the chapters in the book, whereas the conclusion is supposed to tie everything back together again with a nice, neat bow. So if you go through and you look at the introduction and you look at the conclusion and you're still interested, then carry on. If after you've read the introduction and you've looked at the conclusion and you're like, this is not the subject matter I thought it was or whatnot, you can stop. Academic books do not need to be read in totality. It's a huge misconception out there, and actually it would be I don't want to say a waste of time, but it would be challenging for you to get through every book that you need in a given area. You isolate out elements of the book in order to basically reap the nuggets of knowledge that you want to add to your toolbox of skills as you go forward. So within this, as we said, introduction, conclusion, as you're looking at this, they should be setting forth how they're developing their point of view. Additionally, they really should be finding out what the author wants you to do or think, and that's going to be found in the conclusion. So remember, the introduction and also the outline are going to outline how they develop their point. The conclusion is going to be that final restatement of what they want you to think or do. Then we also want to think about what types of sources the author is using. And based on just that initial purview of it and stuff, do you see opportunities for you to connect your own understanding and experiences with the overall picture that the author is painting within the introduction and the conclusion and the table of contents? Another thing, just as I'll pull it up here, just as the table of contents, very first tab, just as the table of contents kind of lays forth the outline of how the book is going to progress, which in this case we can see the introduction, and then we move into antiquity, the dawn, then we move into the Middle Ages, then early modern era, and then culminating in the actual modern era, and then wrapping everything together with the conclusions and insights. Another great tool within a book is the index. okay? And the index is going to be located towards the back of a book. And the index contains keywords, key individuals, key information or concepts that are referred to within a particular book. So say, since this is a book on history of the humanities, in this case, we can say, well, we're interested in Sir Francis Bacon, okay? And you can see here that Sir Francis Bacon appears on pages 193 and then also 230 to 231 and page 240. So if we were just looking for information on Francis Bacon, we would not need to read the whole book. Rather, we could just go to those selected pages and then read what this particular author, Ransbod, had to say about that particular individual. So as you come across topics or names that are familiar to you or that are of interest to you, look them up on those identified pages in the text to see what the author says about that material. So that way you're kind of expanding the frame of knowledge. Additionally, keep looking at that frame of the book. Now we're looking for structure of presentation. And that's where we're talking about the table of contents, where it's presenting that outline of the entire book. So what you should see is whether or not there's a discernible development of structure from the beginning to the end. And then as you go forward from that point, reread once again the introduction and the conclusion. Because as we're looking at that, what you should be seeing, not only in the main introduction, but in the introduction to each chapter, is the goal of that chapter. So kind of the development of the entire process. Finally, you're going to be scanning the entire book, reading only the headings or subheadings, and then just kind of stopping where curiosity takes you to see if there might be some elements of interest within the book for you. At this point, if you're still interested in the book, you can go ahead and analyze it in more detail. If you've said, I've learned everything I want to know about Francis Bacon, the table of contents, which contained the outline for the book, really didn't actually look that interesting, especially after I read the introduction and the conclusion, at that point, you can stop. There's no need to continue on reading when you've already identified the fact that the book is not going to serve your pursuit of information. However, if it is going to contribute to your knowledge base, then at that point, you've identified a book that you would possibly want to read in full detail, or that you would want to read selected chapters out of. Because in this case, for example, I might have absolutely no interest in antiquity or in the Middle Ages, but I've been tasked to write a paper or to pursue information related to the early modern era. So in that case, I would actually only read chapter 4, ignoring the previous content because it doesn't relate to my area of research. So that's a little bit about academic books as we go forward. Keep in mind that they are a very different structure than academic journals. And the interesting thing about books is the fact that, to be honest, they're written for you. Academic books actually offer a broader approach to understanding, a broader approach to information that you as undergraduates or graduate students can delve into. However, what's easier for you to get your hands on are content found within academic journals, even though academic journals are written for a very specific targeted audience that's related to that particular area of research. Academic books, while still being specific and targeted, are actually written for a little bit broader audience, but still an academic audience. So keep that in mind. Also, just something that I want to point out as we go forward with this is that as you're looking at a book, obviously this one has a brief blurb about the book itself. You can also see that there's information about the author found underneath here, where he's a professor at the Institute for Logic, Language, and Computation. Sometimes this is found inside the front cover, sometimes it's on the back cover. just hunt and peck a little bit to find that information, but it'll let you know what that individual's credentials are. You know, are they truly an authority on a particular topic, or are they just someone who had an interest in it and decided to pursue a publishing avenue? Additionally, as you can see, this is my book because I have my name in it. This is the title page right here. So it's going to have the title, any subtitle, which in the case is a search for principles and patterns from antiquity to the present. It's going to say who the author is. It was originally written in Dutch and it has a translator information on it. And then additionally, if you flip that title page over, what is next is the verso page. And the verso is the page on the other side of the title page. Information contained within this includes the year it was published, who published it. So it should have the publisher name and also their place of publication. It's going to have Library of Congress information on it, which you don't necessarily need to worry about. But it should also have information related to the ISBN too. So there's a lot of great information found within the frame of a book if you know how to approach it. So hopefully this was helpful as you pursue knowledge in the form of an academic book. Like I said, academic books are a little bit more challenging for you to get your hands on because oftentimes they are physical books. However, we at JCKL have a great store of electronic books, which, although you won't have a physical copy in your hand, can be perused in much the same manner just by clicking on the links, for example, to table of contents, to title page, to introduction, conclusion, and to index. So that way you can skim the content of that electronic book just as you would skim it if it was in physical format. So, hope this was helpful. I look forward to chatting with you later. If you do have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to me at any time. Thanks so much and have a great rest of the day.